The first sign that something was wrong was not a siren. It was silence. At exactly 8:14 in the morning, cars stopped moving at the main intersection of the border town. Store owners stood in their doorways. A school bus stayed parked with its engine running. Even the dogs that usually barked near the market went quiet. Then a pickup truck rolled slowly into the center of the road and stopped sideways. Behind it came another truck. And another. Within minutes, the main streets were blocked. People inside shops looked through windows but stayed back. No one knew if this was an accident. No one knew if police had ordered the road closed. Then someone shouted from across the street. "Get inside. Lock your doors." A mother grabbed her son's hand and ran into a bakery. A delivery driver ducked behind his van. And from the far end of town, the sound of helicopters began to rise. By 8:20, the border town was frozen. No one could leave. No one could enter. And one local police officer, standing near City Hall, realized this was no ordinary emergency. Because a radio message had just come through. Stay in cover. Multiple armed groups reported near the highway. The officer looked toward the blocked road. Then his radio crackled again. Federal units are delayed. Hold your position. But holding position would not be easy, because something bigger had already started. And before the morning ended, the whole town would learn why that day would never be forgotten. But to understand how a peaceful border town became completely paralyzed, we have to go back to the night before. The town of Red Mesa sat close to the U.S.-Mexico border. It was small enough that many people knew each other by name. There was one gas station near the highway, 2 schools, a repair garage, and a market that opened before sunrise every day. Officer Jason Miller had worked there for 4 years. He liked the town because most days were simple. Traffic stops. Noise complaints. Lost pets. Nothing dramatic. That Thursday evening had started the same way. Jason bought coffee at the gas station and joked with the cashier, Maria Lopez. "Quiet day?" she asked. "So quiet I may finally finish paperwork," Jason said. Maria smiled. "Don't say that too loud. Quiet never lasts." She was right. At the edge of town, a man named Daniel Brooks parked his truck near a storage yard. Daniel owned a small freight business and often drove goods between nearby towns. That night he noticed something strange. 3 unfamiliar trucks were parked near the old road behind the yard. Their engines were off. No company logos. No drivers visible. Daniel stayed in his truck for a moment, watching. Then one truck's lights flashed once. Another answered. Daniel frowned. He had never seen that before. He drove away, but the image stayed in his mind. At 10:40 that night, Officer Miller got a call. A resident near the highway reported unusual traffic. When Jason drove there, he found the road empty. But tire marks covered the dirt shoulder. Fresh tire marks. Many of them. He radioed dispatch. Possible heavy vehicle movement near Old Highway Road. "Copy," dispatch answered. Jason shined his flashlight across the dirt. Then he found something else. A dropped radio battery. Not from town police. Different model. He picked it up and stared at it. The next morning began normally. Children walked to school. Maria opened the gas station. Daniel Brooks loaded tools into his truck. Then at 8:14, everything changed. The trucks arrived. They blocked the roads with careful timing. Main Street first. Then the road near the bridge. Then the road leading to the border checkpoint. It happened so quickly that no one had time to react. Officer Miller parked behind a corner building and looked carefully. The drivers stayed inside the trucks. That worried him most. Whoever planned this knew exactly where to stop. His radio came alive. "Jason, do you see them?" "Yes," he answered. "How many?" "At least 6 trucks. Maybe more." Then another voice joined the radio line. A state officer from outside town. "We're hearing activity near the outer highway too." Jason's stomach tightened. This was larger than one street block. Inside the market, people crouched away from the windows. Maria Lopez had locked the front door and pulled children behind the counter. "Stay low," she said softly. One little boy asked, "Is this a storm?" Maria forced a smile. "Just stay here with me." But outside, there was no storm. Only waiting. And uncertainty. At City Hall, Mayor Robert Hale stood with emergency staff. "What do we know?" he asked. "Roads blocked in 3 directions," someone answered. Federal response. "Still coming." "How long?" No one answered. Because no one knew. Daniel Brooks looked from his garage toward the main road. He noticed one truck near the intersection had a damaged rear light. It was the same truck he had seen near the storage yard the night before. That meant this had been planned ahead of time. He stepped back inside his garage and locked the side door. Then his phone rang. It was Officer Miller. "Daniel, stay inside." "I saw that truck last night," Daniel said immediately. There was a pause. "What truck?" "The one with the broken rear light. Near the old storage road." Jason became silent. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Jason lowered his voice. Then they were preparing this before sunrise. Above town, helicopters grew louder. But they were still far away. And below, nothing moved except nervous people looking through cracks in curtains. Then a loudspeaker voice came from somewhere near the highway. No one inside town could understand the words clearly. But the message was enough to spread fear. Because now everyone understood this was deliberate. Not random. Not accidental. A coordinated operation. At 8:31, one truck near the center intersection suddenly moved. It rolled forward 10 feet. Then stopped again. Officer Miller watched carefully through binoculars. And then he saw something that made his heart race. Another vehicle was approaching from the far road. Fast. Too fast. It was heading straight toward town. And whatever was inside that vehicle was clearly the reason the roads had been blocked. Because every truck driver suddenly turned their attention in the same direction. The whole town seemed to hold its breath. As the speeding vehicle crossed into Red Mesa, Officer Miller whispered into his radio. "It's here." The speeding vehicle entered Red Mesa so fast that dust rose behind it like smoke. Officer Jason Miller stayed low behind the corner wall near City Hall and watched carefully through the gap between 2 parked cars. The vehicle was a dark SUV. No plates on the front. Windows dark enough to hide who was inside. It moved straight toward the blocked intersection, where the trucks had already formed a wall across the road. Then it stopped. Every truck driver seemed to wait for that moment. Doors opened almost at once. Men stepped out. They wore dark clothes, caps pulled low, and radios clipped to their belts. No one shouted. No one ran. Everything looked planned. That calmness made Jason more nervous than noise would have. Inside the market, Maria Lopez heard the SUV stop outside. The children crouched beside the shelves. One little girl whispered, "Are they police?" Maria looked through a tiny gap in the window curtain. "No," she said softly. "Stay down." Outside, one of the men from the SUV spoke to a truck driver. Then he pointed toward the road leading to the bridge. 2 trucks immediately adjusted position, tightening the roadblock. That meant they were still controlling movement. Not just blocking it. Directing it. At City Hall, Mayor Robert Hale listened to emergency updates. "Federal units are closer," one staff member said. "How close?" the mayor asked. "Still outside town limits." The mayor looked frustrated. "We need people kept inside. No one goes near the roads." A town worker rushed in. "The school is asking what to do." "Keep everyone indoors," Hale answered immediately. "Lock every classroom." Officer Miller pressed his radio again. "I count at least 9 men now," he said. "Armed?" dispatch asked. Jason looked carefully. "I can't confirm, but they're moving like trained teams." That answer was enough to change the tone on the radio. Because trained movement meant this was not random panic. It was an operation. At the repair garage, Daniel Brooks watched through the crack in his metal side door. He recognized the damaged truck again. Same broken rear light. Same dent near the back panel. And then he saw something else. A small symbol painted near the truck's rear bumper. A black mark shaped like a triangle. He had noticed it the night before but hadn't understood its importance. Now it stood out clearly. Daniel quickly took a picture with his phone. Then he sent it to Officer Miller. Jason's phone vibrated in his pocket. He looked at the image. The triangle mark. His eyes narrowed. Because he had seen something similar once before in a federal crime briefing. He immediately forwarded the image. A minute later, a federal officer called him directly. "Where did you get that symbol?" "Truck in town right now," Jason answered. The voice on the other end became serious. "That symbol has appeared in several organized criminal investigations near the border." Jason looked toward the blocked street. So this was even bigger than he thought. The SUV door opened again. A taller man stepped out this time. Unlike the others, everyone seemed to look at him first. He walked slowly, speaking quietly into a phone. Then he pointed toward the far highway. The truck nearest the gas station moved again. This time it fully blocked the road leading out of town. Red Mesa was now sealed from every direction. Above town, the helicopter sound became louder. Now people could clearly hear it. The men near the SUV looked up. But instead of panic, they stayed calm. As if they expected aircraft. That worried Jason even more. If they were prepared for helicopters, then they had planned for federal attention too. Inside the gas station, Maria Lopez checked her own phone. No signal. She tried again. Still nothing. The children near her were silent now. Even the smallest ones understood that something serious was happening. One boy whispered, "Will they leave soon?" Maria answered softly, "I hope so." But outside, the men were not leaving. They were waiting. For something. Or someone. Then the answer appeared. Another vehicle approached town from the southern road. This one smaller. White. Fast. The dark SUV moved slightly to create space. The white vehicle drove directly into the middle of the blocked intersection and stopped. The tall man stepped forward immediately. The two drivers exchanged something quickly through the windows. A bag. Small but heavy. The exchange lasted less than 10 seconds. Then the white vehicle turned sharply and drove away. The trucks remained in place. Jason understood instantly. This roadblock had protected an exchange. That was the purpose. A fast transfer hidden inside a full town shutdown. "Federal Command, this is Miller," Jason said urgently into the radio. "I think the operation just completed some kind of transfer." "What kind of transfer?" "I don't know. Bag exchange at central intersection." "Can you identify contents?" "No visual." A pause came through the radio. Then the answer. "Hold your position. Units entering town now." For the first time, Jason heard sirens in the distance. Real sirens. The sound reached the streets of Red Mesa like a signal that the waiting was ending. The men near the trucks heard it too. The tall man looked toward the highway. He gave a short hand signal. Immediately, the truck drivers returned to their vehicles. Engines started. The operation was about to move again. But before the trucks could clear the intersection, one truck near the bridge suddenly stalled. Its engine coughed. Stopped. The driver hit the wheel angrily. And that small problem changed everything. Because now the carefully planned exit was broken. And the first federal vehicles were already entering town. The stalled truck sat across the bridge road like a wall. Its engine coughed once more, then went silent. The driver hit the steering wheel hard and tried again, but nothing happened. That single mechanical failure changed the mood instantly. For the first time that morning, the calm organization began to crack. The tall man near the dark SUV turned sharply. He gave another hand signal, faster this time. Two men ran toward the stalled truck. But now the sirens were close. Very close. Officer Jason Miller stayed behind cover and watched federal vehicles enter Red Mesa from the North Road. 3 black SUVs. 2 marked units behind them. The sound of sirens echoed between the buildings. People inside shops stayed low, but many looked through windows. The moment everyone had been waiting for had arrived. The men near the trucks understood it too. The tall man stepped back toward the SUV. The drivers started moving their trucks quickly. One truck pulled away from the market. Another turned sharply near the gas station. But the stalled truck still blocked the bridge exit. And that delay trapped them. At City Hall, Mayor Robert Hale heard the first federal radio call. Units entering center now. He let out a breath he had been holding all morning. How many? He asked. Enough. That one word was enough to calm the room. Near the repair garage, Daniel Brooks stayed inside but watched through the side window. He saw officers move carefully from vehicle to vehicle. No rushing. No panic. The federal team knew exactly how to approach. One officer used a loudspeaker. Stay in your vehicles. Hands visible. The words carried across town. The truck drivers hesitated. Inside the market, Maria Lopez finally allowed the children to move away from the floor. Stay back from the windows, she said, though her own eyes stayed fixed outside. The little boy who had asked about the storm now whispered, "Are they leaving?" Maria looked toward the road. Maybe. The tall man near the SUV looked around once. He understood the situation had changed. The blocked roads that had helped his operation now limited his escape. He opened the SUV door and got inside. But before the vehicle could reverse, a federal SUV stopped directly behind him. Now the dark SUV had nowhere to go. Officer Miller moved closer, staying behind a parked vehicle. A federal agent stepped forward with his hand raised. Turn off the engine. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then the SUV engine stopped. The town became quiet again. A strange quiet after so much tension. One by one, the men near the truck stepped out. Hands raised. No one fired. No one ran. The stalled truck had taken away their timing. And timing had been everything. The tall man from the SUV finally stepped out too. He looked calm, but his face showed frustration. The agent nearest him carefully guided him forward. Handcuffs clicked shut. The operation that had frozen an entire border town for nearly an hour was over. Investigators immediately searched the vehicles. Inside the white transfer bag they found documents, phones, and wrapped packages that would later become important evidence. The exact contents were never discussed openly in town that day, but officials quickly confirmed one thing. The roadblocks had protected a coordinated criminal transfer. That was why the town had been shut down. That was why every truck had been placed so carefully. And that was why the entire operation had happened with military-like timing. Later that afternoon, Officer Miller stood outside the market speaking with Maria Lopez. "You okay?" he asked. Maria nodded slowly. The children were scared. Jason looked toward the now empty street. So was everyone else. Daniel Brooks handed officers the photo he had taken of the truck symbol. That image became part of the investigation. It also helped connect the vehicles to earlier suspicious movements outside town. His small decision to notice the broken rear light and symbol had mattered more than he first realized. By evening, Red Mesa looked normal again. The trucks were gone. The roads reopened. The school bus finally left its parking spot. The gas station reopened. But nobody in town forgot how quickly ordinary life had stopped that morning. At sunset, Mayor Hale stood outside City Hall and looked down the quiet street. Only a few hours earlier, the town had been frozen. No one had known what would happen next. Now children were walking home again. Cars moved slowly through the same intersection that had been blocked. The silence had returned. But this time it felt peaceful. Because Red Mesa had learned something important that day. A small town could suddenly become the center of something much larger. And sometimes, one stalled engine could change how an entire operation ends.